Ever catch yourself daydreaming about ditching the 9 to 5, like trading it all in for the open range, like swapping the laptop for a lasso? Sounds crazy, right? But, there are a surprising number of us out there who like romanticize that tougher life, the cowboy ideal.
Yeah.
And today we are going to deep dive into why that is. We've got some research and some articles that unpack all the psychology and cultural forces at play. And get this, there are 10 distinct reasons. 10 why this cowboy fantasy is so powerful.
Oh, 10. Well, what's fascinating is these reasons, they're not just about, cowboys and horses. They tap into these pretty universal human desires like yearning for freedom or craving simplicity.
Yeah, okay, so picture this. You're stuck in this soul-crushing corporate job, drowning in emails. You know the drill. And suddenly this image pops into your head. Lone cowboy riding off into the sunset.
Hmm.
Sounds familiar.
Oh, yeah.
Our sources actually use this exact scenario to illustrate the first reason, the appeal of freedom and independence. It's about feeling trapped, right? Craving autonomy. Think about it. This desire for freedom, it isn't limited to just cowboys. You see it everywhere. Entrepreneurs striking out on their own people, embracing minimalist lifestyles, even folks taking that leap to travel the world. The fundamental human need.
So maybe it's not about actually wanting to be a cowboy, but about wanting that cowboy sense of self-reliance and control over your own destiny.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about rejecting that feeling of being boxed in
Yeah.
and seeking a life where you call the shots.
Which brings us to the next point, simplicity.
Okay.
The source material describes this almost poetic image, of trading in that constant barrage of emails and notifications for, herding cattle and watching sunsets. I gotta admit, the idea of swapping my overflowing inbox for a wide open sky sounds pretty tempting some days.
Oh, yeah.
How about you? Oh, absolutely. It makes sense, though, right? That when you consider how overloaded we are in the modern world, we're bombarded with information and choices and demands on our attention. No wonder the idea of stripping things back to the basics, like our cowboy fantasy, starts to feel so appealing. It's a direct reaction to the overwhelming complexity of modern life.
Yeah, it's like our brains are craving a digital detox without us even realizing it.
Precisely.
Huh.
And it connects to trends we see popping up everywhere. Minimalism, digital detox, retreats, the whole back to nature movement. It's all about finding that sense of peace and clarity amidst the chaos.
Okay, I'm ready to trade in my smartphone for a saddle. But before we get too carried away, let's talk about the appeal of adventure and challenge. I mean, the cowboy life wasn't exactly a walk in the park, right?
Right, no, definitely not. And the text highlights how facing and overcoming those obstacles, building a homestead from scratch, surviving in the wilderness gave cowboys a sense of mastery and purpose. We may not be facing down stampedes, but that doesn't mean we don't crave challenges in our own lives.
It's like that feeling you get after finishing a marathon or, finally conquering that ridiculously complicated recipe. There's that deep sense of satisfaction that comes from pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone and coming out on top.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that sense of accomplishment, it taps into our innate need for growth and purpose. When we face those challenges head on, we prove to ourselves we're capable of more than we thought possible. And that's a powerful feeling.
Speaking of powerful figures, let's talk about the hero archetype. I mean,
Yeah.
admit it, there's a part of us that finds that lone cowboy riding off into the sunset pretty darn cool.
Yeah. It's more than just cool, though. The cowboy, especially, as portrayed in media and pop culture, embodies this hero archetype that speaks to our deepest desires. We long for figures who represent courage, strength, and a strong moral compass, qualities that can feel lacking in a complicated world.
So it's like we're hardwired to admire those who stand up for what they believe in, even when facing danger. It's about having that clear sense of right and wrong, which can feel reassuring in a world that's often morally ambiguous.
Exactly. And this yearning for heroism, it isn't just about cowboys. It transcends cultures and time periods. Think about the mythical heroes of ancient Greece or the samurai warriors of Japan. The specifics might be different, but the underlying principles of courage, honor, and self-sacrifice, they remain the same.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something a little more introspective: connection to nature. The text really paints this vivid picture of the cowboy's life in harmony with the natural world, riding horses, sleeping under the stars, experiencing the raw beauty of the wilderness. Makes my tiny apartment feel even smaller, to be honest.
Yeah, I can relate to that. But it's more than just pretty scenery, though. There's a growing body of research that highlights the profound benefits of spending time in nature for both our mental and physical well-being. It reduces stress, improves mood, boosts creativity, the list goes on.
Yeah, it's like there's something deeply restorative about being surrounded by the natural world, away from the hustle and bustle of modern life. It allows us to reconnect with something larger than ourselves and tap into a sense of peace and tranquility that's often missing in our daily lives.
And think about it. As we spend more and more time glued to screens, that yearning for the simplicity and grounding influence of the natural world only intensifies. It's no wonder so many of us find ourselves drawn to that image of the cowboy living in harmony with nature.
Speaking of rejecting the trappings of modern life, the next reason might seem a bit counterintuitive: rejecting modern convenience. Now, I'm not saying we all need to ditch our smartphones and start churning butter by hand, but there's something to be said for the appeal of a simpler, more hands-on approach to life.
Yeah, it's a reaction to the ease and convenience we take for granted. It's about valuing hard work, resilience, and the satisfaction that comes from earning your keep, qualities often associated with the cowboy lifestyle.
So it's about rediscovering the value of hard work and the sense of accomplishment that comes with it.
Exactly. And it's about pushing back against the feeling that our lives are increasingly dictated by technology and external forces.
Okay, so we've got freedom, simplicity, adventure, a connection to nature, and even a rejection of modern convenience. What's next on this list of reasons why we're so drawn to the cowboy ideal?
Well, let's talk about individualism. The cowboy, with his rugged independence and disdain for authority, is often seen as the ultimate individualist.
Right, and that taps into this fascinating tension that exists in modern society, the push and pull between individualism and collectivism. On the one hand, we're encouraged to stand out, be unique, forge our own paths, but at the same time, there's this strong emphasis on conformity, fitting in, following the rules.
Yeah, so it's like we're constantly trying to balance that desire to be our authentic selves with the pressure to conform to societal expectations. And for some, the cowboy ideal represents a rejection of that pressure, a bold declaration of self-reliance and independence.
It's about carving out your own space in the world, even if it means going against the grain. Not necessarily in a literal sense, but maybe in terms of our values, our beliefs, how we choose to live our lives.
Exactly, yeah. It's about recognizing that there's power in defining your own success, your own purpose, and your own path to happiness.
Which is a great segue into the next reason on our list: a sense of honor and purpose. The text highlights how cowboys often operated with a clear moral code, a set of values that guided their actions and gave them a sense of purpose.
This is a really important point, especially in today's world, where traditional values and belief systems are often questioned or challenged. The cowboy's code of honor, while perhaps romanticized, offers a model of steadfastness and integrity that many find appealing.
It's like in a world that can often feel morally ambiguous, the cowboy's clear-cut sense of right and wrong provides this much-needed anchor.
And this sense of purpose, often tied to their work and their connection to the land, contrasts sharply with the aimlessness that many people feel today. We're constantly bombarded with choices, information, distractions, and it can be difficult to find a sense of grounding and meaning in the midst of all the noise.
It's almost as if the cowboy's life, with its clear goals and values, offers a sense of clarity and direction that many of us crave.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true fulfillment comes not just from achieving success, but from living in accordance with a set of principles that give our lives meaning and direction.
And let's be honest, there's something inherently satisfying about a job well done, about contributing to something larger than yourself, whether it's caring for livestock or building a community.
It's about finding a purpose that resonates with your soul and gives you a reason to get up in the morning, something that transcends the pursuit of material wealth or fleeting pleasures.
Now let's move on to a theme that's closely tied to the cowboy mythos: cultural nostalgia. The Wild West, with its larger-than-life characters and epic landscapes, has this powerful hold on our collective imagination.
And this isn't just about cowboys and saloons. It's about this broader human tendency to romanticize the past, particularly eras that seem simpler or more authentic.
It's like we're constantly searching for a golden age, a time when life was somehow better, more meaningful, more connected to something larger than ourselves. And for many, the Wild West represents that lost ideal.
Of course, it's important to remember that the past was never perfect. We tend to filter out the hardships and focus on the romanticized aspects, creating a bit of a distorted view of history.
Right, but that doesn't mean there's no value in exploring these romanticized versions of the past. They can teach us about our cultural values, hopes, fears, and even our own personal yearnings. And let's be honest, who doesn't love a good Western movie or TV show?
Exactly. There's something undeniably captivating about those sweeping vistas, rugged heroes, and those timeless tales of adventure and resilience. It's a genre that continues to resonate with audiences because it taps into those universal themes of freedom, courage, and the struggle for survival.
And finally, let's talk about a theme that brings us full circle: inner transformation. The text emphasizes that the appeal of the cowboy life isn't just about the external trappings, but about the internal growth it represents.
Right. It's about recognizing that challenging experiences can lead to profound personal growth, regardless of whether those challenges are physical or emotional.
It's like the hardships and challenges inherent in the cowboy lifestyle, the need for resilience, self-reliance, and resourcefulness forge a certain strength of character that many of us admire.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true growth often comes from stepping outside our comfort zones, from facing adversity and overcoming obstacles. And that doesn't mean we all need to go on a wilderness survival trek or herd cattle across the plains.
It's about finding ways to challenge ourselves in our own lives, to push our limits, and to discover our true potential. So what does this all mean for us non-cowboys in the 21st century?
It's about understanding that we all have that yearning for authenticity, connection, and purpose. That same drive that led those cowboys to the Wild West lives within us, even in today's world.
So while we may not all be able to live like cowboys, we can certainly draw inspiration from their values and their way of life.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to cultivate resilience, self-reliance, and a deep appreciation for the simple things in life, even in the midst of our modern complexities. It's interesting to think about how those 10 reasons, like, those core values of the cowboy, could actually serve as a roadmap for a more fulfilling life, even if we're not, roping cattle or sleeping under the stars.
Okay, I love that idea. So it's not about literally becoming cowboys, but about figuring out what those values mean to us personally. Like, what would our modern day code of the West look like?
Exactly. Like if you had to strip away all the modern conveniences and complexities, what essential principles would guide your life?
What a great question. For some, it might be honesty and integrity, being true to your word no matter what. For others, maybe it's that fierce sense of independence and self-reliance that we talked about.
Or perhaps it's that deep connection to nature, that sense of awe and wonder that you get from being, in the great outdoors.
Right. And for some, it might even be about, finding a sense of purpose through hard work and contributing to something larger than themselves.
I think it's amazing that these values, often associated with a bygone era, still resonate so strongly with us today. It's a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and our search for meaning in a constantly changing world.
As we've been talking about all of this, I've been thinking about my own code of the West, and I'm realizing one of the things I admire most about the cowboy archetype is that unwavering sense of resilience. They faced hardship head on and never gave up.
That's such an important quality, especially in today's world where we're often faced with uncertainty and challenges. It's about having that inner strength to keep going even when things get tough.
Exactly. It's about embracing those challenges as opportunities, for growth and learning, rather than letting them defeat us.
Which reminds me of something else that really struck me from the source material. The idea that the appeal of the cowboy life isn't just about the external trappings, but about the internal transformation it represents.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that true growth often comes from pushing our boundaries and stepping outside our comfort zones, just like those cowboys did when they ventured into the unknown.
It's about that journey of self-discovery, the process of facing our fears and overcoming obstacles to become the best versions of ourselves.
And that's a journey that's available to all of us, regardless of whether we're wearing a Stetson or a suit.
So the takeaway here is that we should all pack our bags and head for the nearest dude ranch. Not necessarily, but I think there's something to be said for tapping into that inner cowboy, that spirit of adventure, resilience, and authenticity.
So maybe it's not about living like cowboys, but about embodying those qualities that we admire in them, that grit, determination, and unwavering sense of self.
Exactly. And, you don't need a 10-gallon hat or a trusty steed to embrace that cowboy spirit. It's about finding those little ways to bring a bit of that Wild West ethos into our everyday lives.
Maybe it's about tackling a challenging project at work with that same can-do attitude. Or maybe it's about, stepping outside of our comfort zones to learn a new skill or explore a new hobby.
Or perhaps it's about standing up for what you believe in, even when it's difficult, or showing kindness and compassion to those in need, just like a true cowboy would.
Right. It's about finding those moments that remind us that we're capable of more than we think, that we have the power to shape our own destinies, just like those cowboys who forged their own paths in the Wild West.
And, one of the most beautiful things about the cowboy mythos is that it reminds us that the journey is just as important as the destination.
So it's not just about achieving our goals, but about embracing the challenges and the growth that come along the way. It's about savoring those moments of connection, whether it's with nature, with others, or with our own inner selves.
It's about finding that sense of wonder and adventure in the everyday, even if it's just in the small things.
And I think that's a really beautiful way to look at it. It's about finding those little pockets of Wild West in our modern lives.
Yeah, it's like that saying, right? It's not the destination, it's the journey. Maybe that's the real lesson we can learn from these cowboys, even if our horses are just our bicycles or, just our daily commute.
Exactly. It's about savoring those little moments of challenge and triumph, those experiences that shape us and make us who we are. So maybe it's about finding the courage to speak up for what you believe in, even when your voice shakes. Or maybe it's about showing up for a friend in need, even when you're feeling exhausted. It's about those small acts of resilience and compassion that make a real difference in our own lives and the lives of others.
Yeah. As we've been talking, I was thinking about how these themes of resilience and transformation relate to another point from our source material. That rejection of modern convenience. It's not about, going off the grid entirely, but maybe it's about finding a better balance.
Right. Like maybe it's about putting down the phone more often and having a real conversation. Or maybe it's about, trying to cook a meal from scratch instead of ordering takeout.
Or getting out in nature and reminding ourselves that there's a whole world out there beyond our screens.
It's about finding those moments of presence and connection, those experiences that nourish our souls and remind us of what truly matters.
Exactly. I think that's a really beautiful way to think about it. It's about finding those little pockets of Wild West in our modern lives.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the enduring appeal of the tougher life, I want to leave you with this. Maybe the cowboy isn't just a figure from the past. Maybe it's an archetype that lives within all of us waiting to be awakened.
Maybe it's that part of us that yearns for freedom, authenticity, and a life filled with meaning and purpose.
And maybe, just maybe, by tapping into that inner cowboy, we can all create a little bit of our own Wild West, right here, right now. Thanks for joining us on this journey. And remember, as you navigate the trails of your own life, don't be afraid to embrace the adventure. Happy trails.